Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over the water to Denmark once again, and this apparently is one of the more established craft breweries or microbreweries from Copenhagen. So we are going to go to Copenhagen once again and to the Brøndby district of the city. So for this one we are visiting Bryggerriet Skands and we're going to have a taste of their Esrum Kloster, and this is meant to be a really quite interesting beer. It's brewed with juniper and lavender, aniseed and a few other things in there. So it's meant to basically use the herbs and things that monks used to use when they were brewing their beer. So it's modelled on an old kind of monk's brew recipe. So it should be a really interesting one. And I was thinking about this before the video. This is actually the first beer I'm reviewing for you that is brewed by a female brewmaster. So pretty cool in that regard. I read that the brewmaster is female from this one, and she owns the brewery. So I was just thinking about that. I don't think I've ever tried a beer that has been brewed by a woman before, so this should be a really quite interesting review, just to see if it's any different, of course. But anyway, as always with my reviews, I'll take you through a little bit of a history of the brewery. Will only be a minute or so long, but if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. The brewery website, the links to my futures reviews that hopefully I can do from Brygerriet Skands, and also the Facebook profile for the channel, and also the Untappd profile. And feel free to connect with me in whatever way you wish. Always interesting to hear from you guys, and to my Danish viewers, please let me know some other Danish beers that you would like me to review. I'll definitely do them for you if I can find them. But anyway, as I told you, this brewery are based in Brøndby, which is in western Copenhagen, and they were founded back in 2003 by Birte and Morten Skands. Now Birte is the brewmaster of the brewery, and she actually had a very long career at Carlsberg, about 20 years or so, but her most recent role before she left there was as development manager, and I think it was actually Carlsberg who trained her as a brewmaster, but I might be wrong there. But she and Morten began home brewing in their basement in Frederiksberg, and after the kind of initial success of this, they decided to found their own microbrewery because people were really quite impressed with their beers. So they started out on a 50-litre pilot brew kit, and they sold their beers through their local supermarket, and they got really good feedback, so they decided to properly go for it and found their own brewery. And now they actually have huge customers such as the National Theatre in Copenhagen, and apparently you can get these beers on the Oslo ferry as well. Those are two of the biggest customers of Brygerriet Skands. But they've got a range of 14 or so different beers now apparently, and just to list a few of these for you, these were the ones that are listed on the website when I'm filming this review. There was the Hummelfried, there was Nix Ale, Elmagrad IPA, Brown Ale, Blue Chimpanzee, Skands Porter. This one's a bit weird to pronounce. This is the Egged Ved Pidgins brew, which was made together with the National Museum. It's looking at another old recipe, kind of similar to this guy actually. There's this one, the Esrum Kloster, there's the Easter brew, and also the Skands Julebryg, which is their Christmas beer. And there's a lot of interesting beers come out of this brewery, and they are quite highly rated on the likes of Rate Beer and beeradvocate.com. So if you want something that's Danish, that's going to be a good beer, and something that's a little bit different, be sure to check out Bryggerriet Skands. I'm sure this beer, I've heard really interesting things about this one, so I'm really interested to try it and see how we get on. So this one is a 7.5% monastic beer. It contains juniper, lemon balm, lavender, anise and also rosemary as well. And these are all herbs, as I told you at the start of the video, that were commonly used by monks in their brewing. And this seems to be a kind of similar thing actually. The other brewery I've encountered who like to add like bog myrtle and all of these herbs to their beers is Stillwater Artisanal, who are from, I believe, Pennsylvania in the States. So should be a really, Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland in the States. So should be a really quite interesting one, and that's a kind of common theme of this brewery. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see it's got a nice old kind of, it's almost like a stained glass window actually, so it's quite yeah, it's quite a nice label design that's on this one. This one's a bit different from the other ones you'll find from Brygerriet Skands. And on here you can see this is the typical, I'm not sure how well you're seeing that. This is the typical bottle cap that you'll find on these beers. It's got a little bit in Danish on the side, but basically it just tells you what I told you about the beer before. This one's meant to be an old monastic beer, and it tells you about all of the things that they've put in the beer. So yeah, should be quite an interesting one. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this beer. So yeah, as you can see, a nice smoky opening as we open it up there. This one comes in at 7.5%, so it's definitely a kind of taster beer if you like. It's not really one that you're going to session and have a few of actually. So it's a nice beer to have on a Saturday night when you just want to kind of chill and not go out and do a lot of things. But yeah, this is actually interesting. It's actually, I was expecting a hazy beer from this. Usually the monastic beers are hazy, but as you can see, this beer's poured a really nice dark kind of chestnutty or hazelnut, not hazelnut, probably chestnutty colour, kind of a rosewood colour is probably the other way to describe it. I'll just bring it over to the light and let you see, but you can see it has a nice kind of dark mahogany sort of ruby tint to this beer. It is actually clear. You probably can't see it through the camera there, but it is actually clear. I can see my fingers through it if I put them just like that. I can see through this beer, and the head is just fading away to be a very thin foamy layer. There's a few big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones just going up towards the top of, or the underside of the head there. It looks really nice actually, and I'm just surprised at how clear that beer is. Usually when you get a dark beer like this you can't see anything through it, but I can actually see the camera, the blue light off the camera as I'm filming this one for you, so pretty cool actually. But the head is just going away now to be a very thin foamy layer, and you can smell the sweet fruits off this without even paying too much attention to the aroma. But yeah, a really interesting nose on this one, so before you try it make sure you give it a good smell. But you can smell a kind of bready and yeasty underlying to this beer. It's a nice big malty nose on this, which is what you would expect from one of these kind of higher strength sort of monastic or abbey beers if you like. But there's a good bit of sweet caramel in there, that kind of underpins the beer, and maybe a bit of the kind of darker treacle or molasses as they like to call it in America. But there's a definite bready and yeasty presence in there. And you can really pick out these spices as well. You can smell the herbs in it. I'm wanting to say the lavender in it actually comes out quite well. And I can smell the juniper as well. It has just, it's not quite like gin, but it smells like some of the juniper berries that you get from some of these kind of small brewed gins and things like that. Not even a great fan of gin, but I really like how it smells. But you can really smell the lavender and a bit of the aniseed in this one as well. It almost comes across as smelling a bit of licorice, this beer actually. Not really getting any of the kind of citrus peel in this one. But yeah, really quite nice actually. You can pick out a kind of dark red fruit in this beer as well, so some plums, raisins and figs in there too. Really quite nice actually. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in this beer, and it is interesting just because of all the herbs that are in this one. So you've got lemon balm, juniper, lavender, anise and rosemary as well. Maybe there is just a little bit of the rosemary coming out too, but definitely before you actually drink this beer, pay a bit of attention to the nose on it. Really quite nice actually. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this guy. So this is the Esrum Kloster, which is from Bryggerriet Skands in Brøndby in Copenhagen in Denmark. Skål. That's really nice actually. It's a lot more bready and spicy than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be spicy, but I was expecting quite a bit of dark sugar in this one, but it really is more of a bready beer actually. Yeah. The kind of roasted sugar takes a little bit to come out in this, but this is really nice. As I always say in the videos, before you pay too much attention to the flavour, just sugar it around your mouth a little bit. But yeah, that spicy character in this beer really is quite interesting. As you would expect, it's a very malt forward beer. But there's a good bit, there's a kind of underlying caramel to this one, but overall the most prominent component of the beer is a bit of a bready character. You've got a nice slightly brown bread flavour that just blankets the middle of your tongue, and on top of that you're getting all of these nice spicy characters that you would expect from the beer when it's loaded with all these herbs. But yeah, it's got a really nice, I can actually pick up a little bit of the juniper in this, and also just a little bit of the aniseed. It almost, as I was saying with the nose, it does come across with just a kind of little bit of a licorice flavour in there. It's actually just a nice spicy character, but you've got a big presence from the herbs in this one. There's a little bit of the bready and yeasty character, but the bread flavour in this one comes across as a bit more of a kind of brown bread, not quite a German rye bread or anything like that, but just a nice smooth brown bread flavour in this beer. The caramel comes out a little bit on this one, just it comes out at the start, but then in the aftertaste it comes out a bit more. It's a bit darker initially when you take the beer in, but then it comes out as a bit lighter and a bit sweeter as you move into the aftertaste, and you're also getting some of the fruity characters of this beer coming out there as well. Yeah, the fruity flavours are coming out just behind the very front curve of the tongue. The hoppy characteristics of the beer, I don't think there's so much in the way of hops in this one. It's very smooth around the edge of the tongue, and it's probably the hoppy characters in this are all the fruity esters. There's nothing like a kind of dry character to it. It's actually, the dryness from this beer is actually coming from the centre of the palate where you pick out the malty flavours. But yeah, it's quite nice and quite a quirky beer, this one, but the fruity characteristics, you'll feel just an oily bubble behind the very front curve of the tongue there, so there's some plums, some raisins and some figs in there. It's really quite nice actually, this. It's different from quite a lot of beers I've had, and but it's thoroughly enjoyable actually. Yeah, these herbal beers seems to be a thing that's being taken on a little bit. The other beer I can think of that was like this was the Gentse Stadsbrouwerij from Belgium, and their beer that used Groot instead of malt or instead of hops in the beer was actually really quite nice. Maybe this beer actually doesn't have any hops in it. I'd be interested to know that, because it does have quite a few similar characteristics in terms of the mouthfeel. So with this one, it's mid-body definitely. Carbonation in it is very, very smooth. It's a little bit oily, that helps bring out some of the caramel flavours and a bit of the darker, slightly toasted flavours as well, but very syrupy, but there's a good bit of roasted character to this beer, and it is slightly, just a little bit bitter in the middle of the tongue too, which is quite nice. There is a little bit of dryness just in the middle of the tongue as you move into the aftertaste on this beer, but there's a good bit of caramel malt and a good bit of spice too. But the spices in this beer are really interesting, not picking up so much of the kind of lemon peel, if you like, out of this, or the lemon balm that's in it, but I can really pick up the juniper, a bit of the lavender, and the rosemary actually is coming out just a little bit too. When you put rosemary on lamb, it has this beautiful, just subtle but just slightly spicy flavour, and you can really pick that up in this beer. But I would say the aniseed or anisey in this one is coming out quite nicely. You can get a little bit of a licorice flavour from it, but definitely the lavender and the what's the word I'm looking for? The lavender and the juniper actually is coming out in this beer too. It's really quite nice. So if you enjoy a kind of monastic beer and you want something that's a little bit different and a little bit unusual, then this is really one you should go for. And overall, if you like some of these herbal beers, then this brewery is something you should try as well. But yeah, those fruity characters that are coming out of this beer are really just a nice little touch on the end there. But overall, this is a really quite nice beer. There's a good bit of alcohol warmth comes out of it as you progress through it, but it's a really nice beer. I would definitely say that you need to have a go at this one. Definitely worth trying if you enjoy these herbal beers. What I would say about this one though is that it's definitely a tasting beer. You know, it's one that you have to try and see what it's like, and if you enjoy it, you go back and have it as a taster every so often. A good dessert beer actually, I would say, for this one, and it reminds me a lot of some of the Christmas beers that we get at home. It would actually be, with all that kind of nice spicy character in it, it reminds me a lot of some of these nutmeggy flavour beers that you get at home. So definitely worth trying if you enjoy some of the Christmas beers and some of the herbal beers, if you like. Really quite a nice beer. So anyway, it's been really cool to review this beer, and I have to say that for my first beer that was brewed by a woman, it is really quite good actually. Just an unusual fact about that. I never thought about that when I've been doing these beer reviews. This one is the first beer I've reviewed for you brewed by a woman, and she's done a pretty damn good job on it, I have to admit. So hopefully this is the first of many beers that I review that are brewed by women. Hopefully they can break into the trade a little bit more, which is always nice to see. Gender equality is something we should all support, of course. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As always, please let me know your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it before. Always like trying beers from new breweries, As always, to my Danish viewers, please let me know some other Danish beers you'd like me to have a go of. Hopefully I can go back and review a few more from Brygerriet Skands in the fairly near future. But in the meantime, I thank you for watching my beer reviews. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and I hope you're enjoying this series of Nordic beers that I'm doing for you here in Lund in Sweden. Slanja just now.